Hey guys, welcome back. Conformity here again. In this tutorial, I'm just going to go through how to use Reaper. So in the last tutorial, I went over how to use FL Studio and get set up for that. And in this tutorial, I'll just be going over how to configure Reaper. So if you haven't already, you should probably download Reaper. So what you need to do is you just go to Reaper. Just Google it like that. And it'll come up right away. You'll see it right here. And the actual, the latest version is Reaper 4, and actually it recently came out. So if you've heard about Reaper, which is almost quite likely, you probably heard about version 3, and they've done quite a few new things in Reaper 4, and so you can check those out. They're all here, and they're all in the manual, which is accessible right here. But anyway, what you need to do is download it. So click on the download link here, and you'll see a few versions. And if you're a Mac user, download the Mac version. If you're a Windows user, download the Windows version. And once you've downloaded it, just install it. Pretty straightforward. And when you install it, you'll see something like this. And this is what Reaper looks like. I've configured mine a little bit, but generally speaking, this is what it looks like. And I know lots of people think that Reaper is just like a really basic digital audio workstation, but actually it's the exact opposite. In fact, Reaper is the most powerful digital audio workstation that I've ever seen, just because of the things you can do in it. And in fact, it's one of the cheapest. So it only goes for like $60. You can buy it over here. Anyway, I definitely recommend you check out the price for it, because it's very affordable and it's very nice. So I'll show you what it can do right now. So right now we can see the tracks here. This is where you can put our tracks, but you need to make one first. So double click on this area and you can expand it. And you can see it now. This is a track. Alternatively, you can just go to Insert New Track or Control T. I'll just press the delete key, delete this. I only want one right now. And basically, the way it works in Reaper is you only have tracks, and tracks can be audio tracks, or they can be MIDI tracks, or they can be automation tracks. And you can assign any automation track to any MIDI track, and vice versa. So everything can work. You can really assign things to each other. And essentially, what it comes down to is actions. So in Reaper, you have actions, and everything can be located by simply clicking the action button and then going to action list, which is the question mark. And you can really find anything you want to do. So if I wanted to zoom in, I just type in the zoom, and then it finds all the actions that are associated with the zoom. So it's really useful if you're ever wondering how to do things. And in fact, that's probably one of the most useful things that Reaper does, and sets it apart from the other crowd. So for example, if I wanted to, I could make a macro, and that's all down here. But we'll go into that later. And that's not really important for starting up, but I just wanted to point out that everything is an action. So if you're ever stuck anywhere, you just go to this actions here, and you can find whatever you need to find. So and then double click it. So for example, if I want to zoom out project, just double click that and it does it, and you can see because it shows you right here what you've done. So anyway, all that's good, but I want to point out how to start up. So generally speaking, what you'll want to do is you'll probably want to record something, or say just do some MIDI work. And in fact, Reaper is very good for MIDI work, and I'll show that in a second. So to get started, now you've got your track here. You probably want to record with it. Before you record with it, you probably need to set up your audio. So what you need to do is go to Options, Preferences, and you go to your device right here, and you can see I've already had it open. Alternatively, you can close this and see this little thing up here. You can just click that, and it brings you right to the audio settings. It's actually very useful if you're doing a live gig, or if you need to set up quickly. I find that very useful. So right now you can see that I've got my direct sound configured with Reaper. So that's pretty much your basic default setting. I don't actually recommend going with this if you plan on recording. It really ends up giving you really high latency. So you want to go down to something like your ASIO driver, and I'll click that right now. So now I've got some drivers I can select from. Right now I own a Fireface, so I can choose that, or I can choose ASIO version 2. But ideally, you'll have an interface that you have installed. You have drivers installed for that interface, and you can just select those from this menu here and enable them accordingly. So right now, as you can see, I've got 1 to 8 enabled and out 1 to 8. That's perfect, but sometimes what'll happen is it'll only have up to like 3 or 4. So make sure you've got all of them enabled. That is if you're using them. If you're not using them, then don't bother with this. Just go to the audio input and output you need. And actually, in fact, this if you disable these, it won't make any difference. You need to go to your actual driver. So for example, right here, and you need to select the appropriate inputs and outputs that you'll enable. So you can see that I've enabled it only for analog right here. I can choose from various different settings, and I found that setting it to analog really speeds up, really slows down the latency. So anyway, that brings down the latency a lot, which is great if you're doing any live gigs or if you need to get your latency really low. There are other settings you can go through, and you can look at your manufacturer's documentation for that. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So for your drivers here, you just need to select ASIO if you're doing any recording. Make sure you select the correct interface, so 1 to 8. Then you make sure that you got your sample rate. Now request sample rate. Don't get all daunted by all these options. I think what happens when you start up a project is it makes it so that your project can set the sample rate, and that's actually separate from this. That's one of the confusing things about it. So what you do, and once you've got this set up, I'll press OK. And you need to make sure that you go to your project settings. So go right here, File, and go to Project Settings. Go to Project Settings right here, and this is where you can set some basic things for your project. So right here, Project Sample Rate. Make sure that's, well, I recommend keeping that unchecked. That'll basically allow you to set it globally for each project rather than having project specific, project specific sample rates. So anyway. Make sure you look at these settings here and set them appropriately. Now I've done some settings in my Reaper settings, and one of the coolest things is you can actually export all your settings. Let's go to Options, Preferences once again, Control P, and you can actually export all of your settings with really easily. Now there is one way you can do it through this. I believe you just go to General and you can go to Export Configuration or Import Configuration. But I've actually found it's easier just to locate one folder. I'll show you where that is. I'm just going to go right up here. I'm just going to go right to my C drive. I'm going to go show you where the Reaper files are. Now, if you installed Reaper 4, it'll actually be in your users, and it'll be within your documents, my documents, and it'll be in Reaper data, right? So Reaper media right here. I've got nothing in here because I've been using it since version 3, and if you're a version 3 user and you're updating, this is where you're going to find all your Reaper data. So what you need to do is go to your user, then go to your app data, you go to roaming, and you go to Reaper down here. Okay, once you're here, this is where all your data is in Reaper. And so as you can see, I've got projects rendered. I made this folder rendered. There's other things you can stick in here, and what I do is I just copy paste everything, and what that does is it basically copies even your license as well. So if you bought Reaper, it'll copy literally everything, and once you start up Reaper, it's a breeze. You've got all your macros and everything set up, so it's very useful and nice to do that instead of using a classic Reaper import export, because that can really take a while to get everything set up again, and you'll just end up recreating all your directories anyway. So that's that. And now there's some other things you can go over, like paths, keyboards, and one of the things you'll probably want to do is set up a VST. So go to Plugins, go to VST, and right now I've set my VST to Common Files VST2. And if you watch the last video, you'll see that that's the folder that you install, that you put your VST, your 64-bit VSTs in if you're using FL Studio. And once you do that, you can rescan like this, and it'll scan through everything, or you can clear the cache and rescan. Now what Reaper does is it checks it. It's like it's scan and verify essentially. So make sure that you've got plugins that work, or else it might crash. I've had Reaper crash a few times, so make sure you've got the plugins that work. You can set some VST settings here. Now if you're using 64-bit Windows, I think you'll notice that Reaper is actually a much better way of hosting your VST since it's natively 64-bit. When I was demoing the FL Studio VSTs, it was actually really like slow and laggy. So I find Reaper is very stable, just because I've used it for a while. But anyway, if now that you've got your track ready, you probably want to select your input. So I'm going to select my input and make sure it's mono, In this case, I'll go to, say, analog 4. I've got nothing connected now because I'm actually using the sound card. But what you do is you do that, and once you got that, you can label it. So like double click on that little area there, and say call it track, or say call it guitar or something. And once you got that set up, everything should be okay. What you need to do is you need to do two things. These are really important steps, and people usually miss them. First, you need to go to monitor recording on. That's if you want the singer or guitarist to hear themselves when they're playing. If you've got them hooked up to an interface, they should already be able to hear themselves. But this is, say, if you have an effect like Guitar Rig or something you're adding onto the guitar, then this is what you want to do. Otherwise, they won't hear themselves. Second thing is this little thing here, record arm or disarm. You need to make sure that you check this. Once you do that, you should see that audio is coming through. So I'm just going to check if it actually works. So you can see now that I'm speaking through this microphone, and that's exactly what you want. So you can see I've got the levels. I'm not really peaking. Now you can do something now and go to the mixer. So go to View and go to Mixer. And what I'm going to do, instead of doing that, I'm just going to press M because that's what I have it set to. And you can set your own macros yourself in the Actions menu as I showed you before. So you can see that I'm getting input through this, which is perfect. I just peaked. Oops. Anyway, I'm not using a pop filter, so that's probably why. Anyway, that's the idea. So you can see your meters now. You can actually add one, add another one, double click to make any track you want, delete, select them, shift, click to select multiples, and press delete to delete them. These are pretty basic things. And now once you got that set up, you just record it. And to record it, you just press this thing right here. So I just go to this, record, and boom, I am recording. So you can see it's appearing right there. I can press the space bar to finish, and it's done. Now it might prompt you and say whether you want to keep this or not if you have a new take. And one of the coolest things is Reaper takes. So I'll show you how that works. I'm just going to record again over this. I'm going to record again right now, and you can see that's happening. And now it actually recorded 2 takes. So right here at the bottom, this is a take. This is another take. If I select this one, this is what it selects. So you can hear back. If we play this back, I don't think we'll hear it because I'm not using the right sound driver. But anyway, that's how that works. You play this back, it'll only play this clip and then this clip. And as you can, then by default, it'll play this one because I didn't record in my second take over this take right here. These are 2 takes, and you can actually right-click them and see that these are takes and do a bunch of things with the takes. And all these things you can do with the takes, once again, can be found in the action list. So I'll go to take. And you can see all these things can be done with takes, so it's really cool. You just set that up the way you want. Now, one of the things they introduced in Reaper 4 is toolbars. So, in fact, this is a toolbar, this is a toolbar, and this is a toolbar. So all I need to do to add a toolbar is click right here, and I believe you can hide transport. You can do all these things. You can create a new toolbar. So let's do that. I'm just going to look over. You can see all the things here you can do with toolbars. So open toolbar. Open toolbar 1, so let's say open toolbar 1, there's my toolbar here. It floats, I can pin or unpin it. So pinning it means if I drag something around here, you can still see it. Unpin it, well, it's not there anymore. So that's what pinning is. Basically, you can customize your interface however you want. Now, you can see each one of these is a different toolbar. You could really add your own, so switch toolbars to toolbar 3, and all of a sudden it changes toolbars. These are actually really cool, so you can customize them, drag and drop, and really create anything you want in terms of that. So these are all, then it brings you to the actions. You can really customize it the way you want. Now, rather than toolbars, maybe it's better just to learn the shortcuts and create your own. So for me, I like M for mixer, V for video. I like to use my control on my mouse to zoom in and out, like in FL Studio. A bunch of things you can configure, and all that can be done within the actions. Or you can actually do some stuff within the actual preferences. But anyway, that's not important. So you should generally know how to record audio. But let's go into how to record MIDI. So let's make a new track. Now, as I mentioned before, each track can have audio or MIDI. So essentially, you can have a MIDI track on an audio track, though it wouldn't mean anything. You just have to send that MIDI track to another MIDI, like a VST, which can host a track can host a VST. So right now what I'll do is I'll go to FX, and it'll load all my FX. This is how you add a VST. Make sure you click that button. And now I'm going to load, say, go to Morpho X and select the 64-bit version. And now I've got my VST loaded. All right, I'll choose a preset. Great. And now I'm just going to do this. First, you need to have your MIDI controller set up. So if you haven't already, you need to go to Preferences and go to MIDI Devices. and right now you can see that I've got two Fireface MIDI ports enabled. Alternatively, if you have your MIDI controller hooked up, you should see it here. Now, if you're using like an external interface, external controller, you can go to Control Services. And you can add yours here. There's a bunch of presets here. You can find more on the Reaper forums. Those are all on the Reaper website, as I mentioned before. Reaper forums. You should have your MIDI. You should have your MIDI device here. And once you have your MIDI device there, you should just be able to add it. So right here, you just select Input MIDI, and you select your input device. It should show up as in one of these boxes here. So I'll just say, I don't know, all channels. And in this case, what you do is you just literally, you arm it for recording, same deal as before, input, and then you go to press home to return to the beginning, and then you just record it as normal. So I can't really do that in this case, but you just record it like this, and once that's done, you'll see it's actually a MIDI item. Alternatively, if you don't have a MIDI keyboard, you can just say delete this. Make sure you make a selection, so drag this little top area here. This creates a selection. There's a little bit of a different workflow than other digital audio workstations, but if I press the insert key, it'll make a block, so an item, see item, MIDI, untitled MIDI item. If I double click on that, it'll bring up the piano roll, and you probably know how this works if you've worked with any other digital audio workstation. Except in this case, it's a little bit different. So remember that right click is your select, and remember that single click is just to create. So as you can see there, I'm just adding some notes here. That's the idea there, and so you just create that, and once I've done that, you can see the velocities are down here. If I right click all of them, and I can drag and adjust the velocity. So anyway, now I unclick this, and I can see that there's actually MIDI going on. Now there's some really cool things you can do with MIDI. In fact, unlike any other digital audio workstation, there's some things called JS plugins, and I guess I'll get into that a little bit right now, just to give you an overview. So if I click on this here, I've got my MIDI item, but there's actually something called JS. So I'll go to Add FX, Insert A, and you can see there's a bunch of plugins here. So FX chains, which are just like series of plugins that you have. For example, mixer presets, as in FL Studio. So I'm just going to click on all of them, and I'll look for JS. These are all the JS plugins. You can do delay, chorus. You can do tons of things with JS here. You can do MIDI modulators. So these are really cool things that you can set up yourself. So mod band, you can just configure everything. And in fact, I've just been told, and you aren't limited to this sort of view here. What you need to do is you actually can set it up. So say I have a track here. If you like the FL Studio workflow, you can go like this and this, create two separate tracks. And say if I want to put this down here, well, essentially this wouldn't work. If I play back, you won't hear anything. But if I set it up, so I go to Item Properties, and if I set it up to send to the certain channel, go to Properties and go to Send to Channel, and you can say which channel it sends to, and you need to set which track it sends to too. I'm not entirely sure how to do that, but it's actually not bad to work like this. You might have tons of tracks, but if it becomes too much, what I'm saying is it just gets really confusing if you do the same workflow like FL Studio. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, use whatever workflow you want. That should be helpful. So that should give you a general idea on how to use things. Now, contrary to FL Studio, the Mixer FX and no other FX are the same. As I mentioned before, there's just tracks. So if I wanted to, I could just add another thing straight on this. Now, I could say add a Mixer plugin. So like this may or may not work. Yeah, I'll just demo that. So here's my here's a mixer, obviously a mixer effect on top of this VST that's being hosted on a track, and everything can be done. So if I go back to my mixer, you can see that I've got two separate so this is a VST and then also the isotope ozone. So all that's done on one track, and you don't need several or anything like that. You can do send, same thing as before. Now, how that's done is you use the in-out button here. So say if I wanted to send all the audio from this out to another track, all I do is I add new send, and I can send it to any one of these. So in this case, I'll send it to 4. And whenever this triggers off now, it should actually send it directly to 4, which is right here. You can see that 4 down there. Now there's also some other things you can do. You can add folders. So folders are really nice for grouping things. It's just like the filters in FL Studio. So if I want to create a folder, I just drag this up here. I select these 3, and I just make sure that the blue line right there, I move the mouse up until it goes just indented a little bit above that track, and now I've got a folder, and this is a folder. Now folders can be just like other tracks, but what happens is everything that's here actually routes directly to this. So let's test that out. I'm just going to play back my little thing here, and this is going to sound awful. I'm going to record again right now. You can see that's actually, I'm going to just delete this so you can see, for example. You can see that this is still, you can still hear stuff out of this track, the guitar, even though there's nothing on it. And you can see a little bit of a, what is it? See that area there. So anyway, so that's how that works. And so once again, to send to another track, you just click this in out. So for example, right now, if I see this here, you'll see that this is a folder. There's a little icon that says it's a folder, which indicates to me that I'll get sound from everything else. And then there's every other track that sends to it. So this is really cool if you want to group things. Now that we've gone over that, there's a couple other things that are really cool in Reaper. So you can make folders. In fact, you can make as many folders as you want. So I can go like this. Now I've got another folder inside a folder. Even more, I can go as many as I want. So instead of, unlike FL Studio where you can only have one filter for each one, you can have several folders inside folders, which I find amazing. All right, so now I've got all of that. I want to show you a little bit about the Project Bay. So if you don't know what this is already, Project Bay is basically it's control. Actually, it's I forgot what it is. So it's Control B, and they've actually changed it. It might look different because I'm using the beta right now, but what it is it's basically your patterns essentially in FL Studio. You can see another video about this on my channel. But in a nutshell, what it does is it basically allows you to easily find all the media within your project and drag and drop, just like in the browser. But let me mention there's also a browser. So if I press Control Alt X, it brings up the browser, and so I can see a bunch of samples. So I can see all my samples here. Go, any one of these, and just drag and drop into the track I want, and now I've got my media. So it's very useful. Now you can see it appears in source media, and I can actually add folders. So that's really cool. You can see all that stuff in my other video. Very, very, very cool, and I find it's very useful as well. So you can find all your patterns, everything, group them by folders, so you can find whatever pattern you're looking for. Just drag and drop, and you're good to go. So once again, that's Reaper here. If you have any questions, let me know. It should be, generally speaking, all you need to know. Oh, automation should give you a little bit of lowdown on that. Well, anyway, automation, you just do the same thing, except you click a little thing. You click this little automation sign here, and that basically envelopes. It basically triggers an envelope. So I can choose any one of these envelopes right here. There's a variety of them, volume, pan, but there's even more. So you can find all those. What you need to do is, I'll show you how to do that. All I do is I click on this specific one, and I can select from all the parameters. So these are all the parameters available to this plugin. So make sure that you select the right track first with the plugin loaded. And then I can select which one I want. So if I wanted to do LFO2, then I just do that, and I can select whether it's visible, armed, or and it's on the UI. So if I click the UI, it triggers down there, and I find that really cool because I can modulate it. I can do all these different things. Now, unlike FL Studio where you can only have one thing modulating one other thing, this is a little different. You can actually modulate several parameters with one. So if I wanted, I could modulate 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I could modulate the volume of another one, etc., etc. So it's actually even more like, as I mentioned before, it's one of the best digital audio workstations I've ever worked with. So anyway, that's how that works. So if I want to modulate the volume on this, what I do is I go to this. Once again, I'll give you a basic example. I go to this, I click on volume, and I want to make sure that it's the pre-FX one, because before it hits the mixer. So now you can see this little line here. I've configured it so that they appear on the track. It'll actually appear in a separate track below this. So I'll just shift and click to create a point, and you can see that the wave actually changes. Really cool. I can make another point, and I can press Alt and change the tension on it. So just like FL Studio, a little different though. So I can create that, and now you can see I've got that here. So if I play it back, it's horrible, but whatever. That's the idea. And you can drag and drop you can actually copy paste all of them. Just right click, you can clear points, copy points, right? And you can paste them into another one. And by default, if I drag and if I control click and drag, it'll actually recreate that envelope. So it's really cool, really easy to do part doubling. That's one of the things I love about this. It's really easy to double your parts if you're doing any orchestral work. So anyway, now that we've gone over that, I think that's about it. But if you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Hopefully that helped. Thanks. Bye.